Yeah, that was my setup. I had my Memphis Les Paul, and then that, and I don't know if it had a gain to give you distortion, but it's about this time I started getting pedals, and I probably also started with the Ross, 'cause I remember Ross was like the biggie. This is before Boss really became it was DoD was already around, and MXR pedals, remember them?
Hey, I have a story I remember about that Memphis Les Paul that you have that I'd like to say if you don't
Yeah.
remember. When you did bring it to Arizona and we saw it for the first time, I looked on the back and there's MEG had been scratched in the back of it. Do you remember that?
I do.
Right, so I said, "What's MEG?" And you said, "Well, that's my girlfriend Meg at the time thought it would be funny or thought it was true love or something. She scratched Meg in there." I said, "God," I said, "What'd you do?" And you said, "I dumped her." Good job.
Wow.
You don't
No,
remember
I
that?
don't even remember it being in the guitar. But it's it sounds logical. I mean,
That was the best dump
it's
I've ever
terrible though.
heard.
Hey man, priorities, come on, right? I think the guitar's gonna be here a lot longer, guaranteed. Okay, so anyway, yeah, that was my guitar. So you started building yours, and what kind of amp did you say you had at first?
I had a Fender Champ, then I
Oh,
had
the
a
Fender
Peavey
Champ.
Classic.
Then you got that probably only
Got the
rubs salt in the wound.
Classic, and then I got a Marshall head that I used the speakers to the Classic, and, um, which ended up blowing not the speakers, but it just blew the crap out of the Peavey electronics.
Mhm.
I tried to use the Peavey amp without the Marshall, and everything was fried. The Marshall destroyed it somehow,
Yeah,
which I was fine with.
yeah. I So that I think you jumped quite a bit ahead of me by the time you got to that, because I went through a couple of different Frankenstein versions. I remember at one point I found in like a thrift store or something, or like a maybe even a pawn shop in Chicago. Not thrift, no such thing. At a pawn shop in Chicago, it was an old PA system. And do you remember seeing this? Did I bring this to Arizona? It was like one tall cat tower
Yeah, you
that had
did.
right, and it was like 4 tens in it, and there was 2 of them. It was 2 of these that had 4 tens, and it had just this old PA head from, like, I don't
I
know, the
I
'50s
think
or something.
I think we ended up using that for a PA for our singer for a little bit.
When we get Dan Pettit on, we'll have to have him Dan would have been singing through that, right, in Enemy. But, so I had that thing going, and that did nothing for sound processing. That was basically a massive bad power amp without a preamp. So that introduced me into this phase. I had that, and so what I did for my Marshall sound, and so by this time, as far as chasing a sound goes, at first I was just trying to get a distorted sound to sound like a guitar, and then eventually I got enough to where with the old PV and some pedals to do like the flirting with disaster, da, da, da. So I had the successful, distortion sound and all that going. But what really put me over the top is when I had that PA, and then I went out and got when Marshall came out with a little tiny Marshall amp. Remember that thing? It had like one. It was like their version of a champ.
Like that?
And yes, kind of well, no, it was actually a little smaller than that, but what it had was a full-size headphone jack. And when I
Yeah.
saw that yeah, that too, right. When I saw that, I said, "Now there we go. I run that sucker into the input on the PA, and now I have a 2, 4, 12, 2, 4, 10 cabinets with the additional, like, 75 watts from this thing." And so that became my first stage rig in Blitzkrieg, the band that Danny Schaefer, who will also be on, who is still he's got albums out and everything now. Um, yeah, believe it or yeah, I mean, he just put one out recently. He's got like 5 or so. He still plays. He plays
That's
out all the
cool.
time. I see he's playing. He's constantly playing. But when Danny and I started Blitzkrieg, that's what I was playing, and that's what I played on stage for the Blitzkrieg performances at, like, the Rusty Nail and places like that in Chicago by, like, '83. Also, though, I had gone through 2 different guitar iterations at this point. After I had the Memphis, I got a Dean ML, and at that same music store where I'd gotten the PV amp. So I had the PV amp for a while in the Dean ML, and then I quickly after that went down to get, and I ended up getting a Mexican Strat. I got
I
my
think you had that white Strat when you were in Enemy with us.
right. That's what I'm saying. You missed the ML phase. That was still in
Yeah,
Chicago.
man, I wish you'd have had that thing. I love that thing.
Right. No, I got that. I just simply didn't like the way it played. And when I picked up the Strat, I was like, oh boy. And I've had Strats since, except for the
Um,
time when I played my Alembic, which I
Plus, it
would be
gave you the
playing.
Dave Murray
Well,
sound.
that's the thing. And so that's the last thing I wanted to say.